But even if you're successful at draining it, the next guy can just refill it. So I want to break the swamp. That's really what we need to do.
So Ron DeSantis has been campaigning all over Iowa, all over New Hampshire, holding multiple events like he should be. And at all of these events, he's not mentioning Trump's name. It's kind of like Voldemort. He's like refusing to say Trump's name. He's beating around the bush. He's being kind of passive aggressive. He's making little comments here and there. And he was holding a rally the other day where he talks about how he's not going to drain the swamp. He's going to break the swamp. So essentially, he's just going to do the same thing that Trump's doing, but he doesn't want to, use Trump's phrase.
It's worse today than it's ever been, by far. And that's a sad testament to the state affairs of our country. But even if you're successful at draining it, the next guy can just refill it. So I want to break the swamp. That's really what we need to do.
Ron DeSantis hasn't really differentiated himself from Trump. He talks a lot about what he's done in Florida, how Florida's running, how he's going to, push Florida's policies on the country, and everything's like surrounded by Florida. The only idea that he's actually come up with, or the only thing that I would say is that I've seen that's different, is he does go after wokeness. He does go after woke culture. He is very strong in favor of parental rights, and I honestly think that's really important. I mean, it's like super important that our kids are not being indoctrinated in schools. That can't be your only defining attribute,
Importance of family. We have respected our taxpayers, and we have rejected woke ideology. We fight the woke in the legislatures. We fight the woke in the schools. We fight the woke in the corporations. We refuse to surrender to the woke mob. This state is where woke goes to die.
There's a lot of things about Ron that kind of turned me off. Several things, like the fact that it took him like forever to announce that he was going to run for office. And, if you remember, he went on that like weird like tour of all these, he went to all these other countries and rubbed elbows with people. And, it was kind of weird because he wasn't, an announced candidate yet. And it just kind of seemed like he wanted to like, put an image out there. He wanted to look presidential. And it didn't, at least for me, it didn't really hit me like a good thing. It was kind of like he was just playing to the crowd. It actually reminded me of like JFK and Jackie Kennedy, walking side by side. It was like him and his wife. It was like he was trying to put that persona out there. And another thing that he did was he actually changed the law in the state of Florida. Originally, the state of Florida had a law that basically says a sitting governor cannot run for president unless they resign. Well, Ron DeSantis had that law changed to where he could still serve as governor and then also run for president.
DeSantis' pathway to a presidential run is paved in part by the recent changes Florida lawmakers made, which allow him to run without having to resign as governor.
To me, that kind of shows you that he's not very confident, if you're running for president, you should be willing to give up everything. Work your ass off, because that's what you're going to have to do to win. And so the fact that he wasn't willing to say, you know what, I'm going to step down. This is how committed I am. I'm going to step down from my governorship to run for president. That's how committed I am. That's how I'm going to, and that would have shown a lot. Like that would have made a huge impact, I think, on like people's perception of him. But I think, as he's launching his campaign, I think that people are going to start to realize that there's not a whole lot of depth to him. Another thing that does bother me, when they're interviewing Trump, they ask Trump, like, why do you have a nickname for him? Trump gives people a nickname when he doesn't respect them. So he's giving DeSantis a nickname. That means he doesn't respect him. So in the interview, they ask him, hey, why are you calling him Ron DeSanctimonious? And here's the clip.
So what happened with Ron is the following. He came to see me. He was getting killed. He was being crushed. Adam Putnam, it was over. I have many people that I know that worked for Adam Putnam. They said it was like I hate to use this expression, it was like a nuclear weapon went off when you endorsed, because they considered the race to be over. They had the race. He had millions and millions of dollars, and he was way up in the polls. He was beating Ron by 30 points or something. It was over. Ron came to see me, tears in his eyes. He said, I need you to do me a big favor. First he asked for the meeting, then he asked me for the favor. I said, what's the favor? Would you endorse me? So I said, let's give it a shot, Ron, okay? And he was desperate. I said, okay. I gave him a nice endorsement. I said, you write out what you'd like and let me see it. He wrote it out. I thought it was terrible. I changed it, made it great. I gave him a great endorsement. From the moment I pressed that button, he blew the guy away. The race was over. They never even got to spend their money. I got him the nomination. By the way, could have never gotten the nomination. He would be working in either a pizza parlor place or a law office right now. And then a couple of years later, they say to Ron DeSantis, will you run against the president? And he said, I have no comment. I have no comment. And I looked at the people I was with. I said, that's not supposed to happen.
The question becomes, do people care about loyalty? Do everyday people like myself care about loyalty? You see where Trump basically made DeSantis. DeSantis would have never, I think we can all establish that as fact, DeSantis would have never gotten the governorship if it wasn't for Trump. Trump went out and made all these rallies and all this stuff and put a lot into his campaign that caused him to win. Nobody would know who DeSantis was if it wasn't for Trump. Here's where I stand. I've been backstabbed. I've been betrayed. I've had friends of mine that I thought were my friends that I helped and I was there for, stab me in the back. So, and I think that probably everybody has. Like, the older you get, the less naive you are, the less trusting, because a lot of people break that loyalty. And everyday people, they know that feeling, and it's not a good feeling. And I can tell you, loyalty means a lot to me, like as an everyday person. And I do think that has an impact. I mean, the fact that DeSantis, was essentially begging him. I mean, look at this commercial.
Everyone knows my husband, Ron DeSantis, is endorsed by President Trump, but he's also an amazing dad. Ron loves playing with the kids.
Build the wall.
He reads stories.
Then Mr. Trump said, you're fired. I love that part.
He's teaching Madison to talk.
Make America great again.
People say Ron's all Trump, but he is so much more.
DeSantis is like eating out of Trump's hand. I mean, it was you could tell just by that commercial that DeSantis would have done anything that Trump required of him. And that person is now running against the person that made him. I don't know. It just doesn't sit well. It doesn't sit well. I personally think that when this is all said and done, I just think that DeSantis is going to hurt his reputation, and he's going to wind up suspending his campaign, and it's going to basically ruin or at least put a shadow over his political future. Like, it's so dumb. Like, why did he decide? And don't get me wrong, like, I'm all for more candidates and all for competition, and I think people should run. I do. But I don't think he has what it takes to win, personally, just based off of the issues that I already mentioned. But, if he would have just sat back for 4 more years, he would have just said, you know what, I'm going to give Trump one last shot. I'm going to let him have his time, his moment. If he would have done that and possibly came in as a vice president, or even just would have, stood by, done a great second term as governor, he would be the first. I mean, he would be in the first position to be president the next time around. If he was the vice president, it's like he's like, he would just have to essentially ascend the throne. Like, it would be like an easier transition for him. The fact that he's decided to essentially stab Trump in the back and run against him, it's okay to do that, but man, you better win. Like, you better win, and you better perform. Otherwise, you're going to look stupid, you know? And I think so far, unless something changes, that's the path that he's on. So anyways, thanks for the video. Do me a favor, like, subscribe. I'm going to be trying to post at least 3 or 4 times a week, and I'd really appreciate it. Thanks.